We go. Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Veronica Taylor, member of the States of Alderney. Veronica, thank you very much for sparing me some time. Good to see you.
You too, Tony. I'm delighted to chat to you.
Jolly good. Let's start off with government reform. And that seems to be going nowhere at the moment, but I'm sure you've got a magic trick. Basically, what you want to see is committee government reverting through to executive government. Can you just basically explain how that works?
Yeah, no problem. So as you know, in the last states meeting, in fact, it was the one before last, we had another attempt at trying to put through some of the reforms that had been presented, how many years ago, Tony? A couple of years ago?
Oh,
Was
I
it
can't remember. I was a young
2022?
man then.
And there was a team of previous states members that had worked on these governance reforms. Kevin Gentle was involved. I'm just trying to think who was around at the time. Annie Burgess, Ian Carter, and so on.
Yeah.
And there was a good governance working group. They had taken some of the findings from the Andrew MacDonald report and previous different pieces of intellectual property from various different people. So Dr. Caroline Morris and others that had studied Alderney and considered what might be appropriate for us in terms of how we might take things forward. The good governance work that was undertaken by Ian and the team developed a model that looks like executive governance with a civil service infrastructure that sits underneath that. We were quite keen to explore that as a team. We were keen to see, in fact, so many of us stood on that ticket of governance reform. I was one of the people that said, I don't know whether we need 6 members, 10 members, seven, who knows how many
Yeah.
members you need. When you're outside of government, it is difficult to know how it works. It's only when you get involved that you start to see some of the challenges that you experience in getting decisions made, particularly in the committee structure, particularly when you have 10 independent members. So we don't have party politics here in Alderney. Everybody is independent. We all sit on committees at the moment. Committees will form decisions. The committee chair has a casting vote if there is disagreement between the committee. And very often those things will go to states and they'll either be passed or not passed in terms of policies or laws. So what I have found has happened is you have remits such as housing. Housing is a good example. We know we have challenges around housing here in Alderney, and housing responsibility sits in three different committees. We have a housing working group, we have the General Services Committee that own some of the stock and have the relationship with the Alderney Housing Association, and so on. So executive governance would operate in a slightly different way to committees. In my view, it would provide the electorate with a clear line of sight to the members who are responsible for delivering on policy in particular areas.
Okay.
Whereas at the moment, there isn't that line of sight. People can get lost in committees. And I think it also gives those members that are leading in these areas of policy that opportunity to work with other members and to work with experts in our community in these fields to develop policy and then take that to the states for debate and final resolution. I think it will introduce more transparency. I think it will introduce better debate. And I think it will support more efficient decision making and effective decision making. One of the things I suggested, I don't know if you listened to the states meeting when the good governance work came forward a couple of weeks back. One
Well,
of
it
the
didn't get
things
very far, did it, Veronica? That was the problem.
it didn't get far. It failed yet again, and I was really disappointed we couldn't get that one last member to approve the two things that we were trying to take forward, which was to move to an en bloc election
Yeah.
and to reduce the number of members. So we were looking to reduce the number of members from 10 to 8 And the reason for 8 was that that was a recommendation of the Good Governance Group with those portfolios. And in addition to that, the civil servants had completed some work in how the existing committee structure could operate with 8 members. It would require some changes to committee structures. It would require a protocol that we have the power to agree today, where as a team of 10 members, we say, actually, it's not the most efficient use of everybody's time if you have 8 people sitting on economic development and all 10 members sitting on policy and finance and so on and so on. But we are in that situation.
But at this stage, it's at a very juvenile stage in the whole matter, isn't it? We're just talking about trying to synchronise into one on-block election date every 4 years, which means
Yeah,
that somebody's going to have to serve 2 years to make that to synchronise.
to synchronize. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is, um, obviously, there's a big worry among existing states members that going from 10 to 8 means that 2 are going to lose out. Well, I just don't see it. What's the problem there?
Well, there are fewer members. I don't know if every member that is up for election this year would stand again. I would hope that more members of our community would want to stand again. So all 5 members or 5 positions, let's not talk about members.
Yeah.
Let's talk about positions. So all 5 positions are now up for re-election. There would have been 3 positions, but all 5 members that are up for election again this year would have the opportunity to stand for those 3 positions, should they choose to, as would other members of our community.
Yeah.
I personally would like to see younger members of our community step forward, people with families here who are going to grow up here in Alderney, who should help to shape its future and be involved in its decision making. I would like to see the States more representative of the island community. And historically, I don't think it has been. I think even today, I mean, I'm in my 60s, Tony, and I
I would
think
never have thought that, Veronica. Gosh.
well, yeah, but I mean, I'm in my 60s. We've got states members that are in their late 70s. We've got, there is quite an older profile for
But
states
this has
members, and
always been the
historically
case,
that's
hasn't
been the
it?
case. Yeah,
And the
historically
reason
that's
for
been the
that
case.
is that a younger person can't throw their career down the drain in the hopes that they get re-elected 4 years on. Because the fact of the matter is, the amount of money that you actually paid isn't sufficient to support a family, is it?
It's definitely not, and it's in fact, in terms of the amount of work that you do for states,
Mm,
that's for individual members to determine.
yeah.
You could do as little or as much as you like to do, as you feel committed to do. However, there is a require. I mean, I would say, having not known it, I mean, I wasn't involved in the political world before I took this role. I come
No.
from a commercial background,
Yeah.
Tony. I'm used to speed in decision making. I'm used to less bureaucracy around decision making. I think scrutiny is important, absolutely important, particularly when it's taxpayers' money that you're committing to various projects. But I have been quite surprised. I guess I get irritated at the length of time it takes to get things done. And that's through no one's fault. Everybody is working very hard. I think we have we have 10 members, all with their own agendas, all trying to move things forward. And I think it's difficult probably for the civil servants to know which is the priorities. And I do think that's on us to determine for them.
Yeah.
But actually translating something from a policy into law takes more time than I realized. And that's largely because of the process that has to be followed. And some of the things that you think, actually, we should be able to do this without having to pass a law. For example, a trial of the dogs on beaches.
Mm.
Why did that need a change to an ordinance in order for us to be able to do that? Why isn't that something that, as a local, in our local town council part of our role, we could agree with our community and test it and see how it works. We had to wait for laws to be enabled in order to run this trial. And it took so long, it's quite frustrating. But going back to executive versus committee, I do think having an executive leadership team where each member is a lead for a portfolio enables that member to work with experts and other politicians. We currently do that to a degree, to be honest with you, Tony. So I can give you an example of the marine energy and renewables. That's a working group. It's led by the chair of that group. That's Mr. Abel, that's Bill. I lead on education and skills development. We've formed a working group. I'm chairing that. So I would say I'm the political lead for that. And so on. There are other working groups. We've got the housing working group and so on. So we do have portfolios to a degree, but they're getting lost in the committees. And the committee workload, I think, gets in the way sometimes of getting that work stream through and getting your proposals agreed. I'm hoping that with the education and skills development working group, that we will have a set of recommendations that we can bring to the Policy and Finance Committee in the October meeting, and that those recommendations will be approved, and work on those recommendations will then commence, and it will, if you like, dovetail into the government work plan. So if you look at the executive governance model that the Good Governance Group developed, there were 8 portfolios, one of which was housing. I can't remember all the individual titles of each of them, but there was one on education, sports, arts, and culture.
Yeah.
So pretty much following the model of Guernsey, their committee structure, but those
Yeah.
headings, but as executive leads. And I do think for the electorate, for the people that are electing us, they will then be able to quite clearly see what we are doing, what we are able to effect and change. And I do think that's important for the electorate. I do think sometimes, certainly when I wasn't involved in the work, I think, well, why can't they agree something and just get it done, And it's the committee structure, I feel, that gets in the way, we
I think a
organise
lot of
ourselves.
the public, and I've been here 40 plus years in terms of involvement with Alderney. I think we all think that you do it all in the Policy and Finance Committee. You do a little bit of um, window dressing at a states meeting just to convince us that everything's going okay. But essentially, I think people are totally disillusioned with the whole thing. They really are. And it's only going to be a matter of time, I think, before the Ministry of Justice gets involved.
Well,
Particularly,
effectively,
but yeah, can I just finish this point? Particularly if you can't even agree to reduce from 10 to 8 and synchronise your election dates.
it was really disappointing, and I don't understand why members voted the way they did. And I was saddened by that
But it's
because
happened before,
some,
Veronica.
it has,
Last
yeah.
time round, they all agreed at the Policy and Finance Committee meeting that they would vote in favour of it. You have your states meeting, and half of them decide not to.
Yeah, well, they vote at the Policy and Finance Committee meeting. What we vote for is to have the debate about this in
Yeah.
states in front of the public. So I wouldn't say that they agreed in Policy and
Well,
Finance
my
that they would
information was
vote for this.
Yeah, my information is that they had agreed verbally. It
Yeah.
hadn't been put in writing or anything, but they'd got round the table and said, "Yeah, we can go with this," and they didn't.
Well, this time round, I was in the Policy and Finance Committee meeting when we discussed these proposals,
Yeah,
and there wasn't agreement between the members of the Policy and Finance Committee, but there was agreement by a majority of that committee to take that proposal to states and let's have the debate in states where the public can hear a debate, or it's not really a debate, it's a discussion. Everybody gives
yes,
their opinion as to
yeah,
why they're voting one way or another.
yeah,
There isn't proper debate in the States. There isn't the opportunity for that. Um, but so the majority of the Policy and Finance Committee that attended that meeting agreed we would bring it forward and have that discussion in states. So they didn't agree to the proposals. They agreed to bring it forward. That's what just for
yeah.
clarification,
Okay, yeah,
that's what happened. And some members probably hadn't made up their mind as to which way they might vote. They wanted to hear people's argument for why we should move. I was disappointed. I guess there was some things we could do. With hindsight's a great thing,
Yeah.
but what we could have done is brought forward the two proposals as two separate papers. One, do we want to move to en bloc? Could we get agreement for that? I think we probably could have got agreement for that, and that would have been a great step forward. And the other proposal, should we reduce from 10 members to 8? And would we have got enough votes for that? I don't know. Maybe we would have done, because I think what we needed was a certain number. The way the law is written, we have to have a certain number of
And it's
votes.
different to a simple majority, isn't it?
It is. It's a minimum of 9. Is it a minimum of 9 in attendance
Yeah.
and a minimum of 7 of those 9 to agree?
Okay. So you've
So
only got to have a couple of them away, off sick or on holiday,
yeah,
all
and you
sorts of
can't.
things, and they can, keep doing it, can't they? They
Yeah,
can keep, making sure it doesn't proceed. And it's
and
very frustrating.
it's interesting because I do accept some of the arguments that members made, that actually this should be a process that's undertaken in full consultation with the public, and maybe we should go to a referendum around these matters. But when I think back to before I started to work as in this role,
Mm.
what would I have thought if the politicians had said to me, should you go to en bloc or should you go to executive? As somebody who isn't involved, and many of the public in Alderney aren't involved in politics, I certainly wasn't until this role, you wouldn't necessarily know which is the right way to vote. You wouldn't necessarily understand the implications of committee versus executive governance. So, that said, we can simplify those discussions and we can simplify that for people to understand. And I'm a great advocate. Sorry, excuse me. I promise you, this is not a gin and tonic, Tony. This
That's
is
what she
actually
says,
water.
folks.
And I'm a great advocate for using proper plain English when we
Okay.
communicate with the
Yeah, yeah,
public,
yeah.
so that
Let's
they
let,
understand
let,
that.
let's move on. The civil service. Uh, do they have qualifications, any of them?
Well, I don't know their personal CVs. I'm not involved in recruitment within the civil service. I can't tell you that, Tony. But the appointment of our chief executive and our treasurer are States appointments, as you know, because they
Yeah.
recently went to States. All of the other appointments further down that level are done internally with the civil service, and States members aren't involved in those appointments. In terms of those two particular appointments, we have a recruitment board, so an employment board within the States of Alderney. That employment board is the chairs of each of the committees, and those chairs would run the process of recruitment for the chief executive and the treasurer. I wasn't privy to those processes, so I don't know their CVs in any great detail. Um, so yes, I can't tell you about qualifications of our
Ian
civil
Carter
servants.
always said that he thought they should have qualifications, and it would appear that most of them don't. And
It depends.
in any other line of work these days, you've got to have qualifications. Can't do anything in financial services without a qualification ticket.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I remember working for a brilliant managing director in a large electrical retail chain who left school with 2 O levels. He was brilliant. He
Yeah, but
delivered great
he was an
results.
entrepreneur.
So,
He did well. But in my
yeah,
business, I left school with one O level. Okay, so I beat him on that. And to that end, for the insurance examinations, it took 7 years to get them sorted
yeah.
out because of working at the same time. But
Mhm,
you know, it was a requirement. And it seems to
mhm.
me that really senior positions in local government, which is really what the States of Alderney is, should also carry qualifications. But anyway, let's
Yeah.
move on from that. Um,
I have a view. I would like to say I do have a view
yeah,
about people being qualified to do their roles. And I do also recognize and value professional qualifications.
Yeah.
I'm professionally qualified in HR. That's what I
Yeah.
did in my background. And I do think I do, you know, I don't underestimate the value of that learning and being able to apply that learning in those roles. Don't get me wrong. But as I said, I don't know about our civil servants
No.
in terms of their qualifications. So
But
I'm afraid I can't answer your question.
generally speaking, you think that professional people should have professional qualifications to go with it.
I do think having expertise,
Yeah.
which you get through experience and study, is important in senior leadership roles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Minimum wage.
Oh,
You're an advocate of
yes.
it, I believe, but a lot of people would say, well, Alderney's economy is so fragile at the best of times that if you start
Mm.
telling people that they've got to pay X pounds a week or X pounds an hour to somebody, that employer may well say, well, I'm either going to pack up or I'll do all the work myself and all the rest of it. Very difficult one, isn't it?
Well, it is. It is a difficult balance to achieve, particularly for smaller employers where
Yeah.
margins might not be, sufficient. Having said that, if you think what the minimum wage is, it's £12.60. Is it going up to £13.10? Something like that, isn't it? I can't remember what it is now. Is it £12.60 at the moment? I mean, I tried
Okay.
to do a bit of well, if you bear with me, Tony, back of a fag packet calculation on my calculator. I
No,
mean, what's the
don't
median
worry, don't
earnings?
worry. But the point that
No,
I'm
but
making is we've seen in the UK minimum wages go up and
yeah, job
unemployment go up
losses.
with it. And it's a
Yeah,
very
and I think
difficult balance.
in hospitality in particular, I think they've really struggled with
Yeah.
minimum wage, but not just minimum wage. It was that additional hike in employers' NI
Oh yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
introduced a
yeah.
couple of years
Yeah,
ago
yeah.
that
It was a
they
double-edged
really have
sword.
struggled
Yeah,
to
yeah.
absorb that. Having said, I do agree that people should be paid a fair wage for fair work, and the minimum wage isn't huge. And I've asked around on the island, a couple of people, what do you get paid? And what are you paying your employees? And actually, there aren't that many employers paying less than
Yeah,
£12.60
well,
an
that's right.
hour.
So why do
So
you need
I'm
it?
not sure that the minimum wage legislation is going to have such an effect on our employers. I don't know that for certain, and I would want to do some evidence gathering around that. But in terms of setting a minimum standard, I I know that in the UK, it was necessary. I know from my HR background, unless it's legislated, some employers just won't do it, and they will exploit. There are unscrupulous employers out there that will exploit people. So the minimum wage is important in the UK. Whether it's needed in Alderney or not is to be seen. Actually, having a basic rate of pay at £12.60 per hour isn't a huge amount of money. And it pretty much ties in with the median earnings here anyway. I'm not entirely sure it's going to have the effect that you might think on job losses here in Alderney.
It's a
But
risk that Veronica, it's a risk you can't take. If you go and impose something on employers, and those employers say, "Oh, well, what's the point of continuing? I'm going to
yeah,
I'm going to cancel the business. I'm going to do away with it, or I'm going
I
to
think we should
make that
consult.
person redundant." You've got to be very very careful on this, I think.
I do think we should be consulting with employers
Yeah,
about minimum wage. I
yeah.
absolutely agree. We
Well,
should get their
you got a
input.
vehicle there already with the Chamber of Commerce, haven't you? You could do a
Yeah, and I
survey
do
with
think
them
that
fairly
consult.
easily. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Now
do
look,
think it's important.
we've got to move on to Aurigny.
Oh,
And
really?
I think they are making a major contribution to the decline of the island. Let's give you an example. A friend of mine was coming back last Thursday from Southampton. Plane goes tech. All the people are taken off the plane, and the earliest he could get back was yesterday, Tuesday.
Mm,
Totally unacceptable, that. And quite
yeah.
honestly, that forum that they did was an absolute farce.
Mm.
They treat us
I,
as
th- I,
if
th-
we're
I,
idiots.
yeah, I think every member, I can't speak for other members, I know that,
Yeah.
but In the
Speak for yourself.
conversations we're having, I think there's a consensus of opinion that the air service that we are experiencing here in Alderney is not satisfactory. Absolutely not.
Okay.
And I agree that that lack of reliability that we have with our airline at the moment is a significant contribution to our economic decline, and it will only spiral downwards unless we fix
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That said, I do think there's a willingness by Skybus and Aurigny to collaborate together to fix these problems. And we have had meetings with the MD of Skybus and of Aurigny, and I have left those meetings feeling those guys really want to try and fix this.
So it seems to me the
I'm
only,
not convinced. I'm
yeah.
not convinced they can
Well,
at this point.
that's something that you politicians in the states of Guernsey have obviously got to address. But it seems to me they only
Yeah.
run on time if the CEOs are on board, because they came up with all those promises was it last Wednesday, I think, and
Hmm.
then the next day the service fails again, and it keeps failing.
Yeah.
And they add
Yeah.
insult to injury, Veronica, by offering a big 26 discount. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay, doesn't work for
26% for
Alderney
2026.
because they haven't got
Yeah.
the
And
winter schedules, and it closes off on the 15th of June. So once
yeah.
again, they're just treating
Yeah.
us with contempt, and it's not acceptable. I think the
Yeah.
thing is that they've really got to address the medivacs.
Yeah, so Steve, well, the members are speaking publicly about their desire for the Medivacs to be seen as a separate
Yes,
activity, and I
yes,
absolutely support that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
several months ago, I did raise the challenge with our, so I was nominated to the Ordinary Care Board. So healthcare kind of sits within that care board, if you like, remit. Um, and as a consequence, I took it upon myself to investigate the Medivac situation because that places even more unreliable, risk into the reliability of our scheduled air service.
Mm,
And I've suggested, and I've been saying this for some time now, the Medivac solution is not fit for purpose today. It may have been 10 or 20 years ago. It's not fit for purpose today. We should not be taking a commercial aircraft carrying passengers out of circulation to undertake a Medivac.
agreed.
Medivacs are urgent, they're acute, they're unpredictable. There should be a dedicated service
Mm.
for our Medivac solution. Now, that comes with investment, for sure it does, but it is an important investment for the community of Alderney. And I do think we need to seriously consider alternatives to this solution. I know that there are members looking at solutions that we might consider and are working with HSC and other and
Yeah.
other departments in Guernsey, so STSB and so on, to try and look at alternatives. And it may be that Alderney needs to put its hand in its pocket to help in that regard, but it can't continue as is. And
I think
I
if they
think
can sort the medivacs out, that takes the pressure off the whole thing.
it does. It
And
does. And
and
if we can get
yeah, yes, two planes
the two planes in operation that
and
have been
yeah,
rebuilt, and to be
and
fair to
pilots.
Arini, and the pilots, yeah. So they have
Was
recruited crew and they are training their crew, and they have been beset with problems at the initiation of this contract. So we had Goretti, we had the delays from the sign off on the planes. So they need modifications that hadn't been foreseen. So there has been a number of issues with the transition from Aurigny to Skybus and from Dornier to Twin Otter. Some of it could have been foreseen potentially and managed better. Some of it couldn't have been. Goretti, for example, and the damage that did to the Skybus facilities and the effect that had on the ability to train the crews here in Alderney. So there have been a number of delays. I do hope that things get better in the coming months. I'm hoping that when we take delivery of the planes, that this service will improve. I know they've been training the staff, But I'll be honest with you, Tony, I can't 100% with 100% confidence say it will get better.
No, you can't.
I
No,
don't have that level of
no, no,
confidence.
no, no.
No.
And I think it would be foolish on your part to make any guarantees on that particular
Yeah.
aspect. But
No.
it is a worry. I mean,
But one would want to be able to.
yeah, I'm going over in September, and because of the lack of flights, I'm going to have to go via Guernsey to get to Southampton. And,
Right.
they just don't seem to sort of be doing anything at the present time to improve the situation. Forget the medivacs, but we should see more planes coming in during Alderney week. And we're still
Yeah.
stuck with the same basic service.
Yeah. But they are waiting to take delivery of these planes that are being signed off.
Yeah,
So they do need to go through and but there has been a
it's still only
delay in that
two, isn't
regard.
it? It's still only two
It is only
planes.
two. Yeah, it is only two
So I
planes.
mean
Yeah.
that the status quo doesn't change.
Well, one would hope that with our additional two planes and the Skybus planes, that we have more
Well, they're not.
resilience.
They're Skybus
At
planes
the
painted
moment, we
yellow,
don't
aren't
have
they?
our two. I'm sorry, Tony,
They're Skybus planes painted yellow. Skybus is still running it. Aurigny aren't.
but it's the additional two planes. So we're two planes down at the moment that we're waiting to be signed off, aren't we, for the fleet as a whole? So, and I
Well,
think
my
having
my
so
my belief. Yeah.
the intention
Sorry.
was we would have the two planes
Yeah.
plus the Skybus planes to build in that resilience when planes do have to be maintained. There's scheduled maintenance and scheduled checks that need to happen after so many flying hours and all of this kind of stuff. So there we had intended to have this resilience of our planes plus the Skybus planes. So you know that is what we're working towards. That's what Aurigny are working towards with Skybus. And we would hope to see that resilience being in place before the summer. But as I say, I can't with 100% confidence say to you that that will happen.
Runway. What's the latest on that?
So the latest is that whilst there's been a few delays in getting some project deadlines met, the overall plan in terms of the timetable is still on track. You would have seen the press release that Chair P&F put out this week, that everything seems to be on track. We would hope that the runway will not be closed for 5 months when they're doing the refurbishment. That is, it was suggested in a paper as being the maximum amount of time that it could take. We will, of course, be looking to mitigate that in any way we can when we're working with the contractors. We do have a seat at the table. We've got somebody involved in that work. Deputy Burford is the project lead for that work. She knows Alderney well. She is, in my view, probably the best, most qualified person in P&R to lead the project. And she is confident that we're going to meet those deadlines. Of course, we've got the GST debate in a couple of weeks. And it will be interesting to see how that debate goes and what effect the decision has on the capital budget. At present, the capital has been assigned.
Yeah.
It's ring fenced. It's ring
Good.
fenced for
Good.
the runway.
And
Let's hope nothing jeopardizes that.
you've got an extra bonus, Veronica. They've suddenly
I
discovered
don't
another
expect it to.
£45 million that they didn't know they'd got.
Yes, that happened last year. Yeah, I did see that note from Deputy de Samares. So yes, that was a benefit, but it has an impact of something like £8 million on the long-term capital project budget or something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but
But I mean, it
yeah.
wasn't
So
that
when
long
you play
ago.
that through,
Yeah.
when you
Wasn't
play
that long
that
ago when
through,
they were saying they
it's
got a
not going to
100
fix the
million
problem.
deficit. So, you
Yeah.
don't know what's to know. Finally, we're running out of time, I'm afraid.
Oh,
What about the
okay.
fuel at Alderney Airport? How's that proceeding?
Yeah. Well, so we're working with Guernsey Ports on that project. As far as I understand it, there's definitely a willingness, a keenness to enable that. That project is being managed by a team within the Economic Development Committee. I'm not close to the work. It's moving forward. It's absolutely essential for Aurigny. They've made it clear that it's important for them to be able to refuel here. It does affect the passenger load, as you know. So they are putting that pressure on. We have a team working on it in collaboration with Guernsey Ports. I don't foresee there being any problem So I believe that work will materialize over the coming months.
So
That's all I can
do
say
you
on
see
that.
the do you see the States of Alderney actually providing the facility as opposed to Alderney Electricity?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you,
Because
Tony.
I think
I don't know which way
yeah,
that's going to go. I
AEL
expect
bailed
it will
out.
be
Yeah,
I expect it will be States of Alderney that create the infrastructure
yeah,
with Guernsey ports allowing it.
yeah.
That's as I understand it. I mean, I'm not the expert on this subject, but that's my understanding. And then we will have an operator providing the fuel.
Okay, well, we hope that will get itself sorted out as well.
There's
Um,
definitely commitment to that.
yeah, absolutely. Very, very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, right. Have Bitcoins finished?
No?
No, it's still on the. Okay, it's fair enough.
2.5 is 2.55 trillion US dollars as an economy, cryptocurrency, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not gone away. We have, as you know, a couple of people in EDC working on that project. There is a great opportunity for Alderney in that sphere. We have successfully worked with the Gambling Commission to regulate that sector. And I think there's some expertise and knowledge and IP here in Alderney that could transfer across to the crypto market. And there's certainly interest in working with Alderney. So, as I said, it's the EDC. I don't sit on EDC. I'd love to, but there's enough members sitting on that at the moment. They don't need me. Um, but yeah, who knows? Maybe next year, Tony, I might get
And very
closer to
quickly,
that work.
the data center. You haven't got
Yes, what about the
enough
data center?
electricity.
Well, that's for the anybody that might want to build a data center here in Alderney would need to demonstrate how they might want to do that and where they might source their electricity from and how they might cool it and where they might locate it. I mean, we've had the feasibility study, as you know. I argued in the last policy and finance meeting that the minutes that were recorded in the meeting could be shared with the public,
Yeah.
even though it was regarded as confidential. I know there was some redactions on some commercial figures, but as in what we paid the consultants and so on, I don't know. It'll be in the annual accounts anyway. But however, a lot of what we were keen, the Policy and Finance Committee were absolutely keen to share that feasibility study report with the public.
Okay.
Sadly for us, it's their IP, the company that were commissioned to do it. It's important for the if this is going out to the public, it's important for the public to know that that organization was procured with Guernsey procurement team. It wasn't done here. We worked closely with the procurement team to have that independence of thinking and expertise applied. The feasibility study came back and said, yes, it's feasible. And then we have an invitation to tender. We'll see who comes forward. We'll see how they might want to build it. There will be
We should
so
look
much
forward to observing it.
consultation.
Veronica,
In
I'm
my view,
sorry, we've run out of
that's
time.
okay. I
You
could
know,
talk
you've
forever,
had your,
couldn't I, Tony?
we've done really well. So many,
Yeah.
many thanks. Really been good to talk to you. Hope we can do another one in some future date.
Yeah. Lovely to speak to you, Tony.
Take care.
Enjoy the sunshine.
I will. Bye.